Hey guys, I'm talking about insects today, and specifically insects you'll find in your home. And these methods I'm going to show you, which is 50, it's actually 50 different methods, uses the most organic and safe product, a product that we often put in our foods. It's perfectly safe, so you don't have to worry about pets and children. And also, if you want to download it, I made a PDF. The link is in the description. You go to Patreon and you can download the PDF, save it to your device, or you can print it off as well. So you can have a printed copy or just a saved copy on your computer, your tablet, or your phone. And it's really easy to go through all 50 of them because it gives the recipe, how to use it, and what it's exactly used for. So let's get started on controlling pests in your home with the most safe and organic method I can tell you about, and that is with baking soda. Now the first one is the ant that we often see around our kitchen, and it usually goes for sugar, and it's the odorous house ant. And I would recommend taking a small bottle cap, whether from a soda bottle, water bottle, gallon-sized container, milk jug, whatever you have, and do a 1-to-1 ratio between baking soda and just regular granulated sugar. Mix it well together, and whatever you see the trails, don't disturb the trail. Just put the cap there and let the ants find it naturally. They'll take it back to where they're nesting at, and it will kill off the entire colony. So this is specifically for ants that eat sweets. You'll often find them around cereals and things like that, so you want to make sure that you just don't disturb their trails. Just carefully do that, and you'll need to repeat this about every 2 to 3 days until you don't see any more. They've taken it back to the nest and it's killed off the entire colony. Now if you're seeing spiders in the house, this is a really easy recipe. You're going to take 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 1 quart of hot water, 1/2 of 1 teaspoon of any type of soap you might have handy. Dish soap, I like Castile soap because it's the safest type of soap you can get. Spray your windowsills, door sills, around appliances, under stoves, anywhere cracks, crevices, because spiders like to hide in the dark looking for their prey. So just remember, you want to spray this everywhere about once every 3 to 4 days until you've eliminated spiders in your house. So this is one of the safest ways to get rid of spiders without using a toxic poison. Now if you're having problems with the common housefly, this is a very easy recipe. It's going to be 2 tablespoons of baking soda. You're going to sprinkle it in the bottom of any trash can you have, especially where you might have food. Then you're going to mix another tablespoon with 1/4 of warm water and spray around the trash top everywhere, the lid on it everywhere, so you can remove any odors or anything that might be in there. And you just want to make sure that you give it a complete deodorizing effect with baking soda, because that's what baking soda is known for. So the flies, the common housefly, is attracted to odor. So if you can deodorize your trash bins, that can eliminate flies from searching for them, and you'll find less flies around your kitchen and trash bin area. So fruit flies is our next one. We're going to take 1/2 cup of baking soda, 1 cup of white vinegar. You're going to mix it together, allow it to stop fizzing, mix it well, and then pour it in the drains in your sink, your bathtubs, and especially the key place to put this is in the overflows on your sinks, because a lot of times there's organic debris that's built up over years. So you want to pour that into the overflows, and that will eliminate fruit flies that are laying eggs in those areas and just reproducing. You want to do this late at night, once every 3 to 4 days for about 2 weeks, and you should see a drastic reduction in fruit flies. Make sure that you put all your fruit inside of containers, wash them with a safe soap like Castile soap, as I previously mentioned, and then refrigerate them or put them in an airtight container. Now the next is for German roaches. They multiply incredibly quickly. They're usually a smaller, lighter colored roach. You're going to use 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, and 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. Mix it all together and put it in any type of bottle cap on top of cardboard, somewhere that you can just create a bait station, and put it back in cracks and crevices under kitchen appliances, stoves, refrigerators, anywhere you're seeing them. If they're inside the cabinets, put them inside the cabinets. This one needs to be refreshed about once a week. You'll throw the old ones away and make this again and put refreshed bait stations out. This usually takes anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to get them under control if you have a really bad infestation of German roaches. Now next is going to be for any type of rodents, mice, rats, or anything. And so depending on how bad the problem is, you may have to upsize this. But just for a small rodent, like a small field mouse that's made its way into your house, you're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of any kind of peanut butter, and 1 tablespoon of Jiffy cornmeal mix, or any type brand of cornmeal mix. You're going to take a pair of gloves and you're going to roll this into some small marble-sized balls, and then you'll put that around where you've seen the rodents. You can put it on top of wax paper so it doesn't stick to anything like a floor or countertop or cabinet. You can put those in there and they'll eat that. It'll build up gases in the mice's digestive system, and then that will kill them. They'll either die, they could die inside, but a lot of times they'll go outside looking for water. So a lot of times, not only does it kill the mouse, but it gets them to go outside before they die. Now next, if you're not 100% sure exactly what type of pest you have, where there's a small mouse or rodent, you've seen droppings, but you're not exactly sure if it could be a very small mouse or probably roaches, take some baking soda and take a container like this, drill a lot of holes in it, and then just use it as a tracking powder. Put it wherever you've seen the droppings, and then if you see mouse tracks in the droppings, you can clean that up later, but then you'll know exactly what you have, and you can move on to making the small marble-sized bait that will eliminate the mice for you. Now next is for silverfish, and I've had a lot of people ask me about silverfish. Silverfish is usually a problem when you have either a water leak or high moisture content area. So if you have something under your sink and you think there might be a leak under there, that could be causing silverfish. So you want to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of any type of flour, and 1 teaspoon of powdered sugar. Mix it all together and put it on top of pieces of cardboard about 6 by 4, so as the silverfish walk across, it will dehydrate them and it'll eliminate your problem with silverfish. Now next is for clothing moths. This happens a lot of times with wool, cashmere, and things like that, natural animal products. You want to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, put it in 1 quart of hot water, and then spray around your closets where you're keeping your clothes. Spray up in the tops and the corners, because a lot of times you'll see a very, very small, almost hard to detect, where they've made a cocoon up in the top corners. Also, anything that's contaminated like wool or cashmere, you want to take it and put it in a freezer bag and then put it into your freezer for 72 hours. If it's something really large like blankets, wool blankets and things like that, just fold it up, same method. If it won't fit inside of a freezer bag, just put it in the freezer, and in 72 hours that will kill the clothing moths. Now this next one takes multiple steps, but it works great for getting rid of cat and dog fleas, and there is a slight difference. Sometimes you'll see a smaller flea on cats, and dogs sometimes can have very large fleas. So I think it's just the specific species or variety of flea. But you want to take 1 cup of baking soda and 1 cup of salt, and you want to take something like this, make your own sprinkle container and sprinkle it around your carpeted areas, then wait 24 hours and vacuum it out of the carpet. You may have to do this 2 or 3 cycles because you're going to have newly hatching out fleas that are hatching out from their small eggs. So just remember that this takes more than 1 treatment to get rid of fleas in carpets, but once you do this 2 or 3 times, you're going to see a huge reduction. Salt and baking soda is safe for pets, so you just want to do this at nighttime before you go to bed so you don't track it all over the house, and maybe put your pet in one specific room and just do this, like I said, about every 5 to 7 days, and you want to do a very thorough treatment on all carpeted areas. Make sure you wash all pet bedding, any pet thing that the pet comes in contact with, such as bedding on your own bed. Make sure you wash it in the hottest water possible on your washing machine. Put it on that hottest setting. Now a lot of people have told me they don't have any carpets in their house, so they can't understand why they have fleas on hardwood floors. Well, it is possible for the fleas to survive. A lot of times they'll get into the cracks and crevices around the baseboards. So you want to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 quart of warm water, use one of these small sprayers and go around the edges of the room and then just spray around those areas. Let it dry out, and then you can mop it up or vacuum it with a wet dry vac. But you want to make sure that you do this at least, again, as the previous method, about 2 to 3 cycles, because they can survive. The eggs can survive a lot of different things, including chemicals. So by doing this around the perimeter of the room, that's often where the fleas have laid their eggs, around your baseboards. Now very often you'll have a cricket finding its way into your home, and this is a really simple method. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of cornmeal and 1 tablespoon of baking soda, mix it well together, and put it on any type of lid or container like this. You're going to slide it up under dark areas, because that's a lot of times where crickets like to hide. Wait about 24 to 48 hours and see if you see any evidence of any footprints or anything in there, because crickets will often get in there and eat it very quickly, and it acts as an excellent dry bait that will eliminate crickets very quickly. Now the next one is for camel crickets. They're really frightening looking. They almost look like a spider, but anyways, it is in the cricket family. You're going to take a tablespoon of baking soda, a tablespoon of flour, and you want to take 1 tablespoon of molasses. Mix it all together and make it into a sticky paste, and then put it on wax paper. Put it in your crawl spaces or any dark area, because a lot of times camel crickets are most often found in very dark areas such as basements and crawl spaces, sometimes in garages, and very rarely do they make it into the finished area. So you just want to focus on the humid, damp areas where they're going to be most comfortable, which is usually crawl spaces. Now the next one is for earwigs. You're going to take equal parts of baking soda and either cornstarch or potato starch. Put it in a container like this, or you can use a sifter, various types of sifters you might already have in your refrigerator. Put it in any possible entry points, and they usually will go to, earwigs tend to be more in restrooms and bathrooms and up under kitchen sinks, so make sure you dust those areas quite heavily, and then you can vacuum it up later once you've created that barrier. Now this next one is for millipedes. They look a lot like a centipede, but just much smaller. You're going to take straight baking soda and put it across any window wells, anywhere that there's a possible opening, dryer vents, across doors, garage doors, and sprinkle it after the rain has dried. Usually these come out when there's been a heavy rain, so you want to make sure that when you put it out, there's not an expected rain, but then when you do this, it will act as a barrier, keeping the millipedes from finding their way into your home. So it's just straight baking soda. Now the next one is for stink bugs, and a lot of times they find their way in accidentally, because once they get in, they're kind of lost because they don't have any food source and they can't survive for a tremendously long time, but they can be a nuisance. So you want to take 1/2 a teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 a teaspoon of any type of soap, dish soap, I prefer Castile soap, and 1 quart of water, and you want to spray all the possible entry points, window sills, door sills that may not shut or close perfectly well. That's usually how they get inside, is just those small gap openings, so stink bugs can really flatten themselves out and get into those areas. Now the next one, if you're seeing mosquitoes inside, and if you haven't left a door or window open, the most common way that happens is we'll bring a plant in from the outside, and there'll be just a little small amount of water in the drip trays, and what we don't realize, a lot of times there's some larvae still in those drip trays. It only takes just a few ounces of water for the larvae to survive, and so we bring them inside and suddenly we have an infestation of mosquitoes flying around the interior where we've never left a door open. So you want to make sure that you wash these with baking soda. Take 2 tablespoons of baking soda and about 1 quart of warm water, clean it out, and then also you can, in case there's more mosquito larvae that was trapped inside the plant itself that may find its way back to the drip tray, just sprinkle this lightly, maybe with 1 teaspoon of baking soda, so as it fills up with water, you don't have to worry about new mosquitoes hatching out. Now the next is for bed bugs. We often bring bed bugs back home in our luggage as we travel, and it's most commonly from hotels that are not doing good management of keeping their facilities clean. So just make sure that you sprinkle straight baking soda all over the bed, in between the mattress, around the floor area, especially if you have carpet in there. You can also use a hair dryer to run over the bed area and just do it very slowly, and sometimes that heat will drive them out of their hiding places, so you'll know whether or not you have bed bugs to begin with, if something is biting you in the middle of the night. Also, I'll put a link in the description to a bed casing. It's just a very large casing that you can put around your mattress in case you do have bed bugs, and it's really hard to get rid of them. Sometimes it might take a professional steam cleaning to get them under control if they've gotten out of control. Now the next one is for termites. If you've discovered termites somewhere around the foundation of your home or inside of a crawl space, you can take an entire large container of baking soda like this and just liberally pour it around that area within about 3 feet on each side of it, and then also take about 6 tablespoons, mix it with a quart of extremely hot water, and then spray the mud tubes on the inside vigorously. But in some cases, if termites have progressed too far, you're going to have a professional treatment. So doing this early on can prevent, and you'll just need to monitor that area very carefully to make sure that they don't come back. Now next is for scorpions. We in the southeast have very small scorpions, about 1 inch in size. The Arizona scorpions, I feel sorry for you because those are very deadly and very dangerous, but this works on the very small scorpion. You're going to take equal parts of baking soda and diatomaceous earth, probably 2 cups each, and just put it anywhere under appliances, anywhere that they might be hiding. So dark closets, anywhere like that. They're like a lot of insects. They hide in the daytime when there's a lot of light and then come out at night to hunt for prey. So just remember, you're going to put this anywhere where you have a dark area, such as a crawl space, garage, anywhere under things, just to give it a really heavy dosage of this mixture of 1 to 1. Now the next is for a ghost ant, a little bit more rare type of ant, but you're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 2 tablespoons of honey, and 4 tablespoons of water. Mix it all together and make a paste. If you have a flavor injector like this or any type of pastry bag, you can squeeze it out in small drops about the size of a dime, and that will act as a bait for the ghost ant. Now next is for carpenter ants. You're going to take your disposable gloves, because this formula is a little bit hard to get off your hands. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, and a very thick vegetable shortening like this, Crisco or some other brand. Mix it all together and then put it on top of cardboard. Despite what people think, carpenter ants don't eat wood. They do eat things like this, proteins and sugars, depending on what their colony needs. So just mix this together, put it wherever your colony. You've seen carpenter ants, big black ants. I'll put the picture on there as well for you. Also, you want to make sure that you check for any type of wood rot, because carpenter ants usually explode if you have wood rot around your home. Now next is for drain flies. Some people call them moth flies. A lot of times they come when you have a septic issue. You're going to take 1 cup of baking soda, 1/2 cup of vinegar, any type of vinegar, but white vinegar is preferable, and then 1 quart of extremely hot water. Mix it all together and then pour it into your drains, your traps, your overflows, anywhere that they might lay an egg and breed. So probably, as we talked about earlier in the traps, a lot of times there's a lot of organic material in there, so you might want to take one of the cleaning devices you can buy and put down into your overflows and clean those out thoroughly. Also in the sink where you have down below, if you can remove those traps and clean it out thoroughly, sometimes there is a buildup of organic matter in there as well, and that's sometimes where they can survive even with soap and water coming through very quickly. Now, a lot of times people will bring houseplants in the colder months and suddenly they'll have a problem with fungus gnats, and that's usually because their eggs are right on the surface of your plant, and each time you water them, it allows them to survive and eventually hatch out. So you're going to take equal parts of baking soda and sand and then go around the soil area of your plant and do a very light dusting where the soil is completely covered, and that will stop fungus gnats. So the same thing happens with fungus gnats in the drip trays. You want to make sure you wash them thoroughly. 2 tablespoons of baking soda and 1 quart of hot water. Spray it on there with a sprayer. Make sure it's clean, and then put a light dusting, and then each time you water you might add just a little bit more baking soda to the drip tray, maybe half a teaspoon on each watering surface. Now next is for the Indian meal moth. You want to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda in 1 quart of very hot water, and you want to wash down all your pantry shelves, cabinets, anywhere you're keeping grains or anything like that. You also want to take those and seal them in airtight containers and put any grains that you think might be infested with them, put them in the freezer, and then you'll see them at the top or the surface once you take them back out. So just make sure that you do a very good job of washing your pantry out, because they do multiply very quickly. So the next is for the red flower beetle. Just use the exact same procedure that we just talked about, but also in the shelving, a lot of times they'll hide in the little peg holes. So take your shelves out and do a spray, 1 tablespoon of baking soda with 1 cup of very hot water, and spray any small openings like that, because a lot of times they can hide in those points. Now next is for carpet beetles. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda in 1 quart of warm water, and then you're going to spray around cracks and crevices around the room. You're going to also do a light dusting on the carpet, and if your carpets are not permanently attached, if you can take them outside and do a dusting outdoors, you can remove a lot of them that way. So you just want to make sure you do spray, where you spray the baseboards and do the dusting on the carpet, because it's a 2-step method on carpet beetles. Now next is for the black carpet beetle, and it's the same procedure as the standard carpet beetle, except you're going to focus more on closets. That's tend to be where they're found more often. You're going to make sure that you spray the shelves, remove any type of pet foods, and make sure that you get around the base as well as the very top, because a lot of times they can be hiding very well in closets. So it's the same procedure as the standard carpet beetle, but we're just focusing on a different area. Now next is for the case-bearing clothes moth. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 quart of warm water. You're going to take some cotton balls, dip it into that solution, and then go around all the corners of the closets or anywhere you have clothing stored. Sometimes you'll see them where they made a small casing up in the top corners of your closets. Now next is for the American cockroach. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 2 tablespoons of sugar. You're going to put it in a container like this, mix it well together, put a hole in the side of it, and it will act as a bait station for those very large American cockroaches. So the next is a brown banded roach. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, and 1/2 teaspoon of powdered sugar. Mix it all together and then put it around things where you're storing any type of cardboard boxes or anything like that. They like staying in those places. You'll put it on some wax paper so it doesn't make too much of a mess, and they'll feed off of it. Replace it when it becomes a little crusty or dried out. Now the next is a jar trap for the oriental cockroach. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and then you're going to put petroleum jelly around the rim of it. They'll be able to get in, but you're going to fill this halfway up with water, mix it well, and the sugar will draw them in as a bait. They'll die pretty quickly. You could use this trap on a lot of different types of roaches, but especially effective on the oriental cockroach. So the next one is for ants, and this will help boost any baits you're putting out. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 quart of hot water. You're going to mix it together well, and then put it on a towel or a rag, and then wipe down any pheromone trails. And this is if you have a massive influx of ants, but it will help boost the ants because they'll be confused, and then they'll go out looking for more baits if you've disturbed their trails. So the next is for a centipede, a lot larger than the small millipedes we talked about earlier. You're going to take equal parts of baking soda and diatomaceous earth, go around the perimeter of your house after a rain, and then just put it on windowsills, door sills, and you're going to create a dry intra-barrier that will dehydrate them as they cross, and it will act as kind of a deterrent for them coming inside. So next is for pill bugs. You're just going to do a straight line of baking soda anywhere there's a possible entry point, sliding doors, sliding windows, anywhere like that. You're just going to put a nice 1 to 3 inch barrier all the way around your home in any possible way they may get inside. So the next is for Asian beetles or ladybugs. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, mix it in with water, and use your sprayer to spray any possible entry point, doors, windows, anything like that. And then you're going to do a light dusting once that dries of baking soda, and it will act as a barrier and it will remove any pheromones that might attract the ladybugs or Asian beetles back to that area. Now next is clover mites. You're going to mix 2 tablespoons of baking soda with 1 quart of very hot water and spray all the possible entry points, window sills, door sills, and that can slow clover mites down before they make it inside. Also, you might want to put in a very fine quarter-inch line as a baking soda as a deterrent to keep them from coming inside. So the next insect is springtails. You want to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, put it in very hot water, put it in your sprayer, and spray heavily around your washer and dryer and under your kitchen sink. Now next is for the box elder bug, most commonly found around very sunny windows. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, our very hot water. We're going to spray those areas and then do a light dusting and concentrate on windows that get the maximum or the most amount of sunlight. That's probably what's going to attract them back to that area, and it may be where they're coming in from as well. So next is a bait station for the Argentine ant. You're going to take half a cup of water. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 4 tablespoons of powdered sugar. You're going to make a container like this. You're going to cut a hole in it, soak the cotton balls in water before you put them in there so they will act as a bait for the Argentine ant. Now next is for pavement ants. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of powdered sugar, and 1 teaspoon of flour. Mix it all together and sprinkle it anywhere that you're seeing ants come in lines for the pavement ant. Now the next is for the pharaoh ant. You're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, mix it well together, and then put it in different places around where you're seeing pharaoh ants inside of small caps, and that will quickly collapse the colony. Now the next is for a phorid fly, which often you find in floor drains. So you want to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda and just directly put it into the floor drain without any kind of liquid. And then if it's inside of a shower, inside of a drain around a washing machine, you just want to do a light sprinkling or a light dusting in that area. That will kill the eggs in the drain and also the adults who are flying around near the drain. Now the next is for the rice weevil or the grain weevil. You want to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda and 1 quart of very hot water, and then clean out anywhere you're storing your rice or your grains. If it's in an open container that's not sealed, you need to make sure you seal it, and also you need to put your rices inside of a freezer if you're not using them frequently, because they will overpopulate in rice. Now the next is for book lice, a little bit more of a rare problem, but you want to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, mix it well in a quart of hot water. Take a rag or a sponge and wipe down all the shelves where you're keeping your books and the spines and the outer areas of your books as well, and that will take care of book lice. Now this next one is just a general treatment that you might do monthly if you don't have any major insect problems. This is a good preventive. You're going to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of unscented dish soap, or Castile soap is what I prefer, and you're just going to take that, mix it well in about a quart of hot water, and wipe down everywhere that you might have any type of food problems, or if you've had problems in the past. Also, you can take just straight baking soda and use it in a duster like this. You can dust under appliances, refrigerators, stoves, behind microwaves, anywhere that you think there could be or there was a problem in the past. So just doing a light dusting in those areas is a good way to prevent future infestations. So the last 3 is for either the sawtooth, drugstore beetle, or the cigarette beetle. And these are a little bit more rare, but they can be very, very small. So it's a good idea to take 2 tablespoons of baking soda and then use a small brush like a toothbrush and go around any jars or small spices. Look very carefully around where the threads come together there. A lot of times they'll be hiding in those areas. Any type of opening, there's some spice racks or anything like that, you may have to do a total submerge in baking soda. I would say about 1/4 cup of baking soda, fill your sink up with water, and then submerge any of those spice racks and then dry them thoroughly. A lot of times that's where those 3 types of beetles can be hiding, is in spice racks and things like that, and you can't see them very easy. So guys, as I said earlier, I created an 11-page PDF specifically for using this baking soda. All the recipes, how to use it, some extra advice there. You can get it for free. Just go down to the description and click on Patreon. There's no cost to you at all. Go to Patreon. You can either download it as a PDF or you can print it out completely. If you have any questions about this video or any previous video, I hope you'll become a public subscriber first, because I put those questions to the front of the line. I get anywhere from 100 to 300 questions a day, and it's hard to answer everybody. So I really would appreciate anybody who subscribes and then asks a question. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can become a paid member of Patreon and see early release content. A lot of PDFs are in there, and also content that may never appear on YouTube. So guys, if you're interested in this type of content, check out my other material. I have an entire library of over 200 different videos. So I really appreciate you watching, and have a great day.